Let's move on to another issue here. I understand also from your background that you've had some good personal impact in terms of schools, and of course at the moment we have a question about homeschooling and parent certification in California. Why don't you tell us a little bit about all of that?
Well, I started getting involved in public education back in the early 90s with the Alameda Unified School District, which is an island in the Bay, so we all know, right off Oakland. And I worked with them for a year and a half part-time in developing a vision for the 21st century for their schools. And they have 22 schools and 5,000 students. And we worked with them, and I think that program has been beneficial to them, and I think that they would attest that it had a dramatic impact on their teaching. But beyond that, we, as a representative of my accounting firm, were able to invest over $1.5 million in a new, really a one-room schoolhouse concept for 150 students in Alameda. It was called the Alameda Learning Center. And that school now has blossomed over the last 11 years and is now was rated by the U.S. News and World Report to have a top 8% of the schools in the United States. So I'm working with them. I testified this week with the school board for the county, trying to get replicate another school. So I think that this new concept of using 21st century skills in a school needs to be replicated as many times as we can, and that's what I've been working on most recently.
I understand you're also discussing quite openly what those 21st century needs are, and maybe our viewers would be interested in either that or a little bit more about what's unique and valuable about the school you've established.
Well, in a one-room schoolhouse concept, the students are really, it's almost like going to college when they're still in high school. I mean, they're not monitored in a physical classroom all the time. They have the ability to develop their critical thinking skills and to do thematic approaches to learning. And it's really been some of the students have been able to go to Harvard right out of there, so they've had great success. But it gives more responsibility for the student, puts more pressure on them, but it gives them an incentive to learn, and it's really worked. And I think that's the proof of the pudding, if you will.
And do they spend more time teaching each other?
They do. Because they're all in one big room, the older students teach the younger students, and I think the younger students are inspired by the help that they get from the older students. So it's quite a phenomenon, and they're trying to. They've got a waiting list now of over 250 students to get in, and they're just trying to get approval from the school boards to do it. So I'm really excited about it, and I testified this week before the school board, encouraging them, because otherwise, if they don't allow it, if they don't replicate it, why would business keep investing in schools if they're not going to, when they're successful, not approve a replication of it? So that's kind of where it is. So just one more point on schooling, on this, because lately they've talked about this homeschooling, and I just think that it's very important to address that issue because it's so. I mean, it's got a lot of attention lately, and I have both my grandchildren are being homeschooled, so I'm familiar with the process. And there's no simple answer on how you set the rules to do it, but there's been a lot of success in students that are homeschooled. A lot of kids have gone on to Ivy League schools, so that the academic learning process has been very, very successful in most cases. Now, there's always exceptions, and that's, I think, the lawsuit that it's forced a decision that I don't think is the right one was an extreme case. So I just think that if we have a system, and I would propose a homeschooling system that would have some monitoring by certified teachers, otherwise that the students would be subject to some testing to make sure that they were learning at least to a standard that's comparable to what they're doing in the regular schools. And I think that would be, without imposing the certification on the parents, as long as there's a certified teacher that monitors the program and makes sure that the students are learning, I think that would be enough. And I would propose, some kind of legislation, if I could get enough support, that would require that. But the federal government can't require it. It would have to be tied to some funding source that the feds cannot pass laws that tell schools what to do, but they can put some strings on funding that they now receive, that if they didn't do it, it's kind of a chicken and egg incentive program. But I think we could figure out how to do it, and I would be supportive of protecting the homeschooling program nationwide.